everybody, what's going on? Helmlight here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about and give my first impressions on Yuumi the Magical Cat. Now, if you are unaware, haven't been paying attention, Yuumi's win rate is in the absolute toilet right now, so obviously, this is not the strongest champion Riot have ever released, and I will talk about that in a second, but I do want to at least give my first few thoughts and start at least on the positive side when it comes to talking about Yuumi. So first and foremost, Yuumi is fun to play, which is one of the most important things to consider when talking about a champion and how well they're designed. I think her ability to dash from ally to ally is great. Her ultimate, obviously, I was talking about it before. I think it's super powerful. Maybe not so much for the damage aspect, but that's fine. She's a support. So it's really good disruption in a team fight. Steering her Q around while she's attached to an ally is actually a lot of fun. It's really hard to dodge, and it really can make Yuumi feel skillful when you're able to just sort of guide this projectile onto an enemy and see them try to juke you out. I have a lot of fun playing around with that particular ability, especially in the mid game where everyone's kind of standing around trying to poke each other, and then you're just able to throw this Q out a whole bunch and just make it almost unavoidable. I think it makes Yuumi fairly strong in that regard. However, that is not to say that everything is alright with Yuumi. I think that she has a ton of weaknesses and a ton of moments that make her not so much fun to play. First and foremost, I think the biggest thing that Yuumi has is she doesn't have enough to do in fights. Her heal, is a 7.5 second cooldown at like maximum rank and maximum CDR. So this is like first max, and you did nothing but buy items that give you CDR to try and max this out. So after you've used both of your charges, which don't even heal for that much really in comparison to a lot of other enchanter supports, you're basically done for the fight. If you pressed E twice and you pressed your ultimate, you're done. You have nothing else to do other than just kind of sling your Q around. But because your Q's damage in the slow are so bad, unless you have time to guide it around and give it the enhanced version, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. You're just kind of spamming out this minorly damaging ability and not getting a whole lot of value off of it because at the end of the day, it doesn't actually do enough. So obviously there are big issues with that, and it means that you really don't have enough that you do as Yuumi because you just don't have the cooldowns. You just kind of fruitlessly spam this ability, and once you've attached to somebody, well, there's no reason to really go and attach to somebody else, because if you don't have your heal up, then there's basically no reason to attach to them unless you're trying to give them that minor AP bump. But that's such a small thing, and it's such an unnoticeable thing, that it doesn't feel like you're doing anything by attaching to them, because you're just kind of sitting next to them, spamming your Q, waiting for your E to come off cooldown and saying, wow, I really wish I was doing something else right now. So it doesn't feel like there's much of a reason to dash around. You can do it, sure, but other than trying to be on a target that's going to survive the fight and therefore keep you safe, there's not an awful lot that you can do. Now, she does have a shield attached to her passive, but she can't actually proc it without exposing herself to tremendous amounts of harm, because Yuumi's attack range is only 500. She is super, super short range, and this means that outside of laning phase, where you pretty much always have a champion around that you can maybe get an auto attack or two off on, it's very dangerous for Yuumi to detach herself in the middle of a fight, auto-attack somebody, get the shield, and then pop back on an ally. Because if she's outside of a champion on her own for any degree of time, she just dies to random AoE, because Yuumi is actually the squishiest champion in the game, period. Now, the hotfix buffs did address some of that. I know she did get some additional base health, so I think she's actually tied with Sona now or so, but either way, she's one of the squishiest champions in the game, so you can't have the ability to stand outside of somebody for that long, get off an auto attack with 500 range, and then try to pop back on an ally, because it just exposes you to way too much harm, and it feels like you're jumping through hoops for something that a lot of other enchanter supports get basically for free. Now, Yuumi does get a fairly massive shield, I will say that much. She has to jump through a hoop. It is a pretty big shield, but especially because it applies to her first, and then she can transfer it to an ally when she attaches to them. If she is able to get the auto attack off, she gets the shield, but then everyone dumped their damage on top of her, so the shield she ends up gifting the ally is maybe a lot weaker than it should be, or if you get a shield off at all because everyone threw damage at you. So there are a lot of problems, and ultimately it feels like Yuumi is an enchanter that doesn't have things to do in fights and doesn't feel like a classic enchanter. If you think about other enchanter type champions such as Soraka, well, Soraka is the premier healer. All she's going to be doing in fights is throwing out so many heals per second, you're going to feel like you're playing Overwatch with a Mercy. Nami has a lot of team fight disruption. She has buffs. She has actually a decent chunk of damage because of the way ebb and flow works. You have Janna, who's, again, a really good disruptive force. She is great at peeling. She is great at keeping her AD carry alive and making them empowered. Yuumi doesn't really have a niche outside of, well, she can poke, and she can kind of accompany the front line and give them some degree of extra initiation, is it feels like where Yuumi really wants to be. But at the end of the day, it's just not enough for me to really consider Yuumi as being a very strong champion or in a good spot, because it just doesn't feel like she has enough to do at the end of the day. Now, I know Riot did give her some hotfix buffs, but I don't think they address that particular issue. They make her a bit easier to play, but I think sitting at 30% win rate, that's indicative of not necessarily just, well, people don't know how to play her yet. Talia, for example, was, I believe, a 37% win rate-ish on day one, and she got hotfix buffed on day one, and that did help her out quite a bit. Yuumi, however, is down at 30%. And Talia was always a champion that I was saying, okay, might be a little bit weak, but I think it's just that she has so many weird aspects to her kit that people just don't know how to play her. So it'll just take some time for people to figure her out, and then we'll be able to go from there. But Yuumi at 30%, that tells me more than just the champion is weak. That tells me people don't really know how to play this champion quite yet. People are unfamiliar with what to do with the champion, but also just that the champion is numerically or design-wise just in a terrible spot. And I think Riot's designers, in all honesty, gave the attachment mechanic way too much. I think they thought it was going to be way more powerful than it is. Granted, it is strong, because this is an enchanter you basically can't kill unless she is the last surviving champion on her team, which can be big if you think about someone like Soraka. Well, if you couldn't kill Soraka until she was the last champion alive, oh my god, she'd be so freaking good. So I get, to a certain extent, why Riot were hesitant with where Yuumi is at, because they want to make sure that she doesn't have the ability to just kind of be this unkillable healer that keeps her team alive constantly. But at the end of the day, I think they definitely overshot on the side of way too weak. So how do you fix Yuumi then? I know this is supposed to be first impressions, but I do want to give my thoughts, because I have been spending a decent amount of time trying to figure out how are we going to fix Yuumi and make her feel a little bit better to play. I think the biggest thing I would recommend is combining her passive and her W. I would love it for her to be able to shield whomever she dashed to, with probably a per target cooldown on the shield, if not the dash. So that way Yuumi has the ability to... She has a reason to be dashing around in fights to provide shields to her allies. If you make it scale down with champion level, then Yuumi really has the ability to wait and dash around and give shields to everybody and in time, and it means that in late game team fights, Yuumi will be better than just early game spamming her W to constantly give somebody a shield. And it addresses the fact of, she obviously Riot want her to pop off of champions in fights, but I just don't think it's relevant for Yuumi to do with her attack range that low. So I would love to see that change, and then give her some kind of different W. I don't know what it would be, but maybe something that increases the shield strength, maybe something that gives her maybe an additional heal or additional point of crowd control. Either way, there needs to be some kind of change there for Yuumi, otherwise it just doesn't feel like she has enough to do in fights. I would also like to make her less reliant on high amounts of AP. It really does feel like, as a support, that she has to be building ability power because of the way her kit works, donating a portion of her AP to an ally and vice versa. It just doesn't feel like you're ever going to have enough as a support to make it worthwhile. Now, I think if you go something like Athene's Unholy Grail, you do have the ability to donate a decent chunk of stats over to your ally, and obviously Riot don't want to make her such a huge multiplier that she just blows up everybody just by attaching to someone like a Syndra or a Zed, but at the same time, I think that she needs something else, and I think the biggest issue is, because it's such a high reliance on AP, that you're trying to build a death cap on a support income, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, but you're never going to get enough AP to make that ability worthwhile unless you're building actual AP. Athene's is just not going to do enough for you. So would love to see some kind of change to make her less reliant on high amounts of AP. The other thing is, maybe give her some other reason to use her Q. Right now, like I said, unless you get the enhanced version, the damage isn't there, the slow isn't really there. I would love to see some other kind of buff to the Q. Maybe have it so it always slows, so at the very least Yuumi can help kite for her allied champion that she's attached to. Obviously, you'd have to reduce the cooldown on her Q, because right now it's like, she's like 3 seconds or something at its maximum rank, which is really, really good, but would love to see just a little bit more utility on this champion, and a little bit more for her to do and make her feel so like she's doing something else in fights. But that's just my opinions on Yuumi. Obviously, it hasn't even been a full week yet, so there will be a lot of people learning to play her. She did get some hotfix buffs, so we'll have to see at the end of the day where she ends up. But I think right now it's definitely safe to say that she is very weak and definitely not very satisfying to play in a couple of different aspects. So, but let me know what your guys' thoughts are. If you've had more experience on Yuumi, if you think she's going to be really good, let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, which is linked down in the description. I upload an article just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.